more they keep going farther back, the more they think they're going forward. That's no accident. Notice that some people are even ignorant that they are racist. How could any person not know that they are a racist? Well, there's very simply none. Because racism is not something that anybody has to do actively anymore. It's like if you were to buy an automobile that has a stick shift, you would have to manually shift gears, first, second, third, fourth. You'd have to work the clutch. But if you have an automatic transmission, your transmission moves you through these gears seamlessly and flawlessly. You're shifting gears, but you don't have to do anything but just sit there and hold the steering wheel. Racism is no longer a manual shift. Nowadays, racism has a super smooth, silky, seamless, automatic transmission. And when your transmission is automatic, you don't even have to practice racism. It just happens for you. It's already in place. You ain't never got to call nobody the N-word. You don't have to put no signs up and say, you can't drink from this fountain. You don't have to tell anybody, you can't stay in this hotel. One of the things you do is raise the price so high that the average person can't get there. You've already said you don't want certain people in this establishment.
Yes.
There are those who do not seem to recognize the fact that racism in America is much stronger now than it has ever been before. A few weeks ago, we were watching a movie, The Birth of a Nation, and it amazed us the impact of this movie in the early 20th century, in that it has such a major impact upon the socio-economic trends in America in the 20th century. One of the reasons why there is an NAACP.
That's right.
Is because of the movie and the book, The Birth of a Nation. It was this book and movie that really revived the Ku Klux Klan in America. And when the movie was made, black people were portrayed in the movie, but they didn't allow anybody black to be in the movie. They had white men
in blackface. Yeah.
And after this movie was opened, the rioting in a number of cities was so intense that some cities actually barred the playing of the movie. But the impact of it is that the Ku Klux Klan experienced such a strong resurgence that they were having public demonstrations and marches in cities like New York, as well as Washington, D.C. And that's why in 1909, the NAACP was founded as a response to the book and the movie, The Birth of a Nation.
Tell the history, Doctor.
Popular culture sometimes has a way of incorporating racism in a way that you don't always acknowledge. If it had not been for the NAACP and their organizing and active protesting against what happened with the movie Birth of a Nation, then in Gone with the Wind, you wouldn't have had any black people in the movie.
That's right.
Because in Birth of a Nation, black people were portrayed, but by white persons. So if we look very closely at Hollywood, we will see that whatever has happened that has benefited us has been forced. Nobody has given us anything.
Well,
They have given ground. They have not conceded. They have only done what they absolutely had to do. And because of this, we find that ignorance continues to be more and more virulent and contagious. Now, for some strange reason, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, doesn't say anything about this contagious disease called ignorance. Now, they talk about AIDS and how many people are killed by AIDS, and talk about how many people die on an average day from lung cancer-related smoking. I don't know why it is that the Center for Disease Control does not deal with ignorance. Perhaps for the same reason that we can't really pray in schools or read Bibles in public schools, because it would infringe upon certain people's religious rights. It is as though that is a religion called ignorance. And we know that there must be such a religion because a lot of the people that are talking about God are willingly ignorant of what God is all about.
Well,
and that sometimes becomes a reflection upon the black church, because there was a time when the black church was on the cutting edge of political engagement in America. Not because we just wanted to do it, but because nobody else would address these issues the way the black church would. You understand? It was strange to me that somebody came to me after I ran for state legislature in 1980 and said to me, well, I don't even know why a preacher would want to be involved in politics. I was so surprised somebody would tell me that a preacher shouldn't be involved in politics. When there's more politics in the church than you can shake your fist.
My God, my God.
Politics practically originates
in the church. Yes.
If it hadn't been for no politics, Jesus would never have been betrayed, never
all right.
been denied, never been sold. Nobody would have paid 30 pieces of silver if it wasn't for politics. So don't let nobody run that game on you. That preachers shouldn't be involved in politics. We have to deal with it every night, every day. That's why some preachers won't preach certain sermons, because
come on, Reverend.
He's involved with their pulpit. Wow. You ain't got to say that, just say And so when you understand that every move you make has political impact, then you realize why this struggle against ignorance is such an insidious one. Because contagious ignorance is a disease of the spirit. It is not merely a physical malady. You can't get a shot for it. There's no pill for that. But it is a spiritual disease, and that is why Hosea 4:6 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. But it doesn't stop that. It goes on to say, because you have rejected knowledge, I have rejected you. You don't get to be ignorant unless you make up your mind.
My.
You don't want to hear anything. You don't want to be enlightened. You want to stay the way you are. Most of the problems that we have in America and in the world are really because of ignorance. You wouldn't have segregation if it was not for ignorance. You wouldn't have redlining with insurance if it was not for ignorance. You wouldn't have apathy and indifference if it were not for ignorance. There are people that do not want to know the truth. Jesus said, you shall know the truth. And in knowing it, the truth shall make you free. But if you don't want to know the truth, if you'd rather hear a lie than the truth, then you've made up your mind, I want to stay ignorant. And that is why ignorance is such a pandemic kind of spiritual disease, because there are so many people who love ignorance. You can catch ignorance audibly or inaudibly, actively or inactively. You can catch ignorance in your sleep. You can catch it silently. You can catch it awake, walking, driving. Anywhere you go, you are vulnerable to ignorance. I know that seems a little strange, but anytime you see a man walking down the street with pants below his behind, showing his drawers, that's ignorance.
That's ignorance.
Anytime you hear a person that uses profanity for noun, verb, adverb,